sais pas si le truc Inria, parce que ça serait beaucoup mieux. On se connecterait.
Les anti quoi?
Les gens de Sofia.
Sophie-Polite.
Les antipoliens, c'est ça qui est.
Sophie-Polite.
Hello. So it seems you forgot to book the video conference line. So everybody connected to another one.
It's okay. It's solved.
Ok, j'avais pensé que le truc Mathias, parce que Mathias
J'avais pas fait les deux, non, c'est pas grave.
Il avait enseigné la salle. Du coup, j'avais pensé, mais la salle, du coup, on a fait. Ouais,
Normalement, il y a 12.
On a fait...
Mais là, on est 8. Elle est pleine.
C'est pour 12 personnes.
Il y a 12 personnes, mais 8 chaises.
Ouais, c'est un peu étrange.
Mais il est allé chercher une chaise ou il allait faire?
Oui, je pense qu'il est allé chercher des chaises. Oui.
Du vide pour dire qu'on vient d'assister à un exposé de Jesper Cox qui a réinventé les tactiques en ACTA. C'est rigolo, ils ont fait exactement la même erreur que Coq il y a 15 ans.
Et laquelle? Parce que.
Celle des histoires de l'État qui ne connaissent pas psychologiquement la liste de Gaulle. Enfin, bref, des gens qui prétendent avoir des données.
Mais franchement, ils ont vraiment. Enfin, on a dans chaque assistant de preuve des gens qui réinventent la roue tous les 10 ans sans se renseigner sur ce qui a été fait.
Faut croire, ouais. Mais en fait, ce qui est bizarre, c'est que personne n'a jamais été avant dans l'EXA, je trouve. Parce que ça a l'air d'être idéologique comme problème plus que technique, mais bon.
Ils n'ont pas inventé le TAC quand même.
Ils ont inventé MTAC en gros, avec un M.
Ouais. Oui, tout le monde sait maintenant. Mais je pense que tout le monde est là.
Alors,
avec un petit quart d'heure de retard, on va pouvoir commencer.
Bien.
So who's sharing? Are you here?
oui, ok. Mais je pense que le premier truc, c'est Vincent, non? Pour,
Yes.
Les nouvelles.
Pourquoi on voit plus Vincent? Ah si, c'est là, c'est ce qu'on entend.
Ok. C'est Vincent pour faire une résumé de
We are on YouTube now.
Yeah, on YouTube. Yes.
So in English.
Anglais, okay. So I think the first thing is Vincent to explain like the last changes in the master branch, in the master tree. Monsieur Laporte, tu nous écoutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't hear you properly, Emilio.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, I'll try to speak louder. Okay. 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 So yeah, let's go.
Okay, thank you. So a few words about what did happen since the previous working group. So this is a summary of the merge pull requests between December the 16th and February the 3rd. So there were 107 such pull requests. It's a quiet period, but we have a big change, a big new feature, I would say. It's the extended introduction patterns that have been long discussed, at least. So for the SS Reflect tactic language. So I don't know, maybe Enrico want to say something about them?
No.
No problem. There's some work on Coq ID and in the standard library also new tactics that will help.
Wait, I have a question. So you extended already in 8.9 and these ones?
No.
No, there was no extension in .NET.
Oh, it was just about clear.
Yeah, there were some tiny changes, but.
Vincent, this document is someplace available?
Not yet.
Okay, because I'm taking notes in the wiki, so maybe if you put it online, you can put the change on the notes of the document. I mean, if you want.
Okay. Yes, sure. So yeah, a new tactic by JSON to do some pre-processing when you are doing algebra or to reason about division and modulo using LIA, which is quite effective. So there was a bit of usual refactoring, cleaning. Maybe the part of Coq got the most changes is the STM, and I think it's preparing the way for the work on LSP, maybe.
Mhm.
There are a few bug fixes in all parts of Coq and also in the STM by various people. In the tooling around Coq for developers, I think the main change is that we got rid of the Travis infrastructure for continuous integration and introduced Azure. And we got a contribution by someone from Microsoft who ensured that we properly advertised that we are using Azure.
No, but this is nice because we have permission to ping her whenever we have problems with Azure.
Yeah, sounds very interesting.
And Azure, you're building now macOS and Windows packages? That's what I saw
So far,
yesterday.
only the test suite.
Only the test suite?
And the packages must be addressed before the 8.10
Release.
release.
By
Because now we are still building Windows packages on GitLab for now, using INRI as infrastructure, and macOS packages are not built anymore because they were broken on Trace.
Okay.
And also there have been a few improvements in the documentation, and especially to the user manual with contributions from people that would not contribute to the other parts. So I think this is interesting. It's a sign of opening of our community. And okay, many PRs, less significant, I would say.
Did you make it on purpose not to mention primitive integers?
Yeah, I want them.
Yes, because I
Stop that
took a
okay.
snapshot of the PR
Okay.
merged before February the 3rd, and primitive integers were merged yesterday, or
Yeah, no, it's fine.
well, the 4th or the 5th or the 5th of February, so it's for next time. Sorry.
I merged like a 10 PR yesterday, the day before, so you missed that because I was back from
Yeah.
so
There is some other changes indeed happen. So
And is there some expected things you need to do on primitive integers before the release, or
Yes,
is it going to be just
documentation.
Yeah.
Mainly.
This was merged without documentation. Oh
Yeah,
my
but
God.
the previous state was already undocumented.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I don't know whether we put that on the schedule, but it would be nice to take a decision on SPROP.
Yeah.
Please, guys.
What is it waiting for?
I think it's waiting for release now. So I would like to ask Gaetan for a status. Can you give a summary of where we're at now?
Maybe not now, but
Not now, yeah.
at some it would be nice to
it's
find a slot or something.
It's not in the program there, but I mean,
Yeah.
but maybe there is 9 minutes in this session. So if you want to.
Yeah.
It would be good, to have a picture of the country.
Maybe before we discuss the prop, so maybe as this is indeed okay to mention the last changes that are not here, but of course, I mean, it's important, like the primitive integers, no? What more? There is also this change, Coq thin and Coq top are not the same anymore, and this for sure, so you know, is a silly thing, cleans a lot of code and bugs, but maybe you are hit by not using Coq top to compile anymore. Okay, you should not. And what more, Pierre-Marie? Any other you think? Not really, right?
Was there anything significant you merged yesterday?
In the last 2 days?
No,
No, I don't think so.
there was
Some kernel refactoring.
Okay, so there are 6 minutes, so you can discuss this prop if you want. No, read, even if we put a session later.
Or maybe, Vincent, you have something else to say?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, the status of SPROP?
Well, we are waiting for reviews.
Mm-hmm.
The the doc has already been reviewed some, so there isn't really much that's new from the last time, I think.
Yeah. My take is that there are still quite a few rough edges, in particular regarding pre-typing and the fact that we fix relevance marks on the fly. But it's not really necessary to polish everything before the release, because it's still an experimental. I mean, we probably need more feedback from users before actually fixing everything.
But
changing the kernel should go in at least.
Regarding features, you removed also a UIP option, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite an important change. And it does not change as much the computation engines, like VM Compute and Native Compute, I guess.
But so I didn't, that's unfortunate, but I didn't have time to look deeply at the implementation. But the feeling I had, so just a feeling, maybe it's completely wrong, is that so the kernel seems more or less okay. What does the pretyper do for these marks? Does it ignore them, or so what happens? And is it? I mean, is there a reason why it's not done the same way as for universes, and especially the? I mean, we especially moved universe handling
because
from
pure
kernel.
Because we don't know how to do non-cumulative universes with the graph system we have.
Just to say that the pretyper is completely broken with the universe, if I understand correctly. Like, if you're complaining with the pretyper and the relevance stuff, we're already doing like a random shit in the interpretation between prop and type. There's a like evergreen problem. So the fact that when you write something in one direction, it will type check because it inferred prop instead of set or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's kind of the same problem. Like the algorithm.
No, it's different. That problem is just about unification order. It doesn't really have anything to do with universes. You can stick with a random shit in there. No. We still have the problem that we too eagerly decide that something should live in a universe, I guess. I mean, if we had a generic algorithm to defer the constraints, then we would be fine.
But it's more about subtyping. It's more about cumulativity.
I'm not complaining about anything you said. Why do you complain? I'm just a bit wondering. So why? I mean, we seem to be inferring half of the universe stuff in the pretyper, and I mean, so it seems a bit odd somehow. But
so if you're explicit when you use as prop, you don't have any problems, I suppose.
Yes.
So if I say I fun A as prop and something in A, then the mark is there.
Yeah, but for universes also.
Hello.
Yeah.
You mostly don't have any problems, but pretending that sprop is cumulative in the pretyper was needed originally for some case compilation stuff. So if you disable it, you get issues with your case compilation.
When you use as prop?
What?
You get issues in case compilation when you use as prop because there is some universe that is fixed at type that cannot be lowered to as prop anymore. Something like this. Yeah.
But I mean, what I'm trying to see is it like so that's the current state. You seem to be saying that it's because of technical issues that we are not doing better, but is it that or is it fundamental issues? And in particular, once we merge this, what are going to be the next steps? Is the design going to be cleaned up, or or are we going to stay like this, like with the pretyper inferring half of the stuff?
Well, I don't know. I don't know really how to make a clean pretyper. So I guess you can call it a research question, and it would be correct.
Okay. But couldn't you have like a restricted interpretation of sprop without adding any kind of cumulativity in the pretyper? Then you would probably type check less programs with sprop, but at least the marking would be correct in the pretyper.
Yeah.
So there is a conservative option that you could have.
Yes.
So why is it not done like that?
Because it's too painful.
Can you elaborate a bit? Where does the pain come from?
Too many annotations?
You have to annotate basically every binder where SPROP is, where something is SPROP.
So from what I understand, you would need to say that the marks of irrelevance themselves are variables during unification. And if the type of a binder becomes a prop, an S-prop, then the mark has to be instantiated with irrelevance somehow.
It's a bit like a level, no?
Yeah.
Universe level.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is a bit disturbing to me because it seems like we are in a problem that is more or less similar to universe levels, but we have a completely different strategy to address it. And it's looking more similar to the design of universes before you, because only the kernel does correct things. And so
Anyways, I think we have 1 minute, so maybe we should try to do a small conclusion of SPROP.
But maybe you should write on these specific issues. Maybe Gaëtan, you should explain a bit more what the broad vision is.
First is, would you like a session for SPROP, this working group? Or no?
But in principle, that's the only thing remaining that could be problematic for inclusion.
Well, I think for inclusion, we would at least need to know what would be the next steps or what's the plan. Even the current status is. So if you want it included, I think we need a session. As you like.
Okay.
We can try to schedule something for tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. There is time. So, okay, I'll find a. Gaëtan, Pierre-Marie, you're going to attend the whole working group more or less, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll find a place. I'll find some more minutes because yeah. So one issue still remaining. I'm putting notes. Okay, so we can move to the second thing, which is a stale pull request. That well is Vincent. You have the wiki. You can add when you want the link. Okay, so stale pull requests. So we have a lot of pull requests, and we have discussed sometimes like this is a bit of a problem. It makes it a bit hard to navigate. Like, what is the status of the nesting? So yeah, I don't know. We'd like to chat a bit. Also, I think we can include here stale issues. Okay, so in general, stale issues. We have almost 2,000 issues, which I'm sure there are way more bugs, but with 2,000 we can do fine for now.
When we migrated from Bugzilla, we had 1,100 open issues.
In the migration, right?
So the trend is not good.
Yeah, the trend is not good. I tried to see if it was due to more opening of issues, but it seems it's not entirely due to that.
So what else?
Well, not closing issues, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. But,
No, we're not fixing bugs.
Are you?
That's the main problem.
Do you still want to say things or?
Well, I think it's an open discussion. Really, well,
Okay.
I can say a bit of the discussion ideas we had, for example, with you. Well, one question about the issues, Theo, is, as you know, you've been doing the analysis. Maybe it is the case that when we went to the new system, there was a kind of a spike because people were more likely, and now maybe the rate of new users is slower.
There was a jump in the rate of issues, but I don't think it has been decreased.
I think we should be extremely careful when interpreting the decrease in the ratio of submission of issues, because I personally had some private conversations where I couldn't convince people to open issues anymore because they had seen so many unaddressed.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's hard to interpret them.
Yeah, no, sure. This is a problem. This is the point of chatting a bit. So, for example, one discussion we had is to add a triage tag, okay, both for pull requests and for issues. I'm not sure this works. That this could mean this thing needs revisiting.
But I think at some point in the discussion, I don't know how you want to organize it, but we should really distinguish issues and PRs because the problems are not the same.
Yeah, I think
so. For example, for issues, the most common status is it's already triaged. It has an assignee or not, but at least we could find one. but nothing.
No, but
happens.
many of them that creates is stale. So
I think it's more
again.
It's more
Yeah.
often the case for PRs than for issues.
And for issues too, many issues they are in 8.3. So I mean this status, you know what I mean. So this issue should already go with a tag like is3h and read 3h and it Renal is on master.
Mhm.
So for sure, I'm sure we have a few of them. Okay, maybe you say only maybe after all could be 200 of them. I mean, I'm sure it's hard to say. But for issues, it's also the case of these 1,000 old issues. We have many to reevaluate. Okay, so let's focus on pull requests if you want for today. So
Okay.
oh, sorry, Theo.
I was going to say that, in my opinion, the problem with issue is more dire than the problem with pull request, because pull requests we are still at a level that is somehow manageable, and we manage to process most of them quickly. There are some stale ones, but I think for pull requests we could do better by simply saying this is not going forward. This should become an issue.
So you want to discuss both, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. Yeah. I agree with issues. I mean, if we fix a bug a day, it will take 6 years. So I mean, this is serious.
So.
I mean, the problem is at least I did a few passes on the issues, and many of the issues are in this real. So, for example, there are some tries to fix issues. For example, like in the mix system that I've been looking, there are many 20, 30 issues. So, of course, we will in this year fix some. But I mean, a problem with issues, I mean, is there are many issues that are real issues.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, this is just a manpower problem, maybe.
So I think we should be clear about what an open issue means. What an assignee means. So some projects, some other open. So this is a general problem in open source projects, that there is not enough manpower to treat all the incoming issues. Whereas in proprietary software, issues would be added in other way, so it would be different. But so some projects are using a bot to automatically close stale issues, and I'm not convinced by this approach, because I think this is a way to lose information and to basically give up on lots of things. So what I would propose instead would be to try to close issues more often, but in a way that is meaningful. And to give meaningful status to the others, and basically, so when we have some issues that we know isn't going to be addressed in the foreseeable future, we should transform this into some documentation, like the non-issue document that Emilio had created, but instead put this in the relevant place in the manual, like saying, here are some known limitations that would need research to be addressed, and list them there, and maybe link to issues for more information, but just so that this information is not lost, but it can be found in a relevant place, and it will be even easier to find if it's in the documentation close to the documented feature, compared to being somewhere in the bug tracker. So that's one thing. I don't know how many issues that represent, and the other thing is that the things that we think are doable soon, if someone wants to do them, but it's not happening just because of a problem of manpower. We should use the help wanted tag more often, just to say these are the things that are not done just because nobody is doing them, but could be done easily. And finally, we should use the assignee tag both less often and more often, in the sense that it doesn't make sense to have 100 issues assigned to a single developer. The developers should have only the issues that they are intending to work on in a reasonable future assigned to them.
Actually, for issues, I'm not sure I am so uncomfortable with so many issues, as long as they are real issues and they're triage. But I think and this GitHub is not very good. It's a bit disappointing how you can organize them. For example, 25% of the issues, they have no label whatever.
Yeah,
and this I'm not counting the ones that only have help wanted. That honestly, I don't think it's a very useful label.
Well, it's a useful label for some purpose, maybe not for everything, but...
So I see it a bit different. I think really we should organize the issues and try to understand every part of Coq. So try to understand, I mean, even before the designee, try to understand. And yeah, we have 25% that have no label whatsoever, and really is more than half they are not classified. From my label hacking, so it's informal statistics, no label is 25 at most exactly.
But this is a figure that is completely biased by the fact that we have not created the kind bug label yet, and so most bugs are not labeled.
Yeah, well, but no, they should be labeled as
If an issue
per
is
component.
just kind bug, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but the really important.
It could have the parts, but
Yeah,
the bug means this is something that is not working as intended.
Yeah, but okay, but here we have, I mean, the main problem with issues, with our issues, in my opinion, is that already classifying what is a bug and what is not is going to be extremely hard, because there you have many in-between issues that are against unspecified components, like unification, so like you have dozens of them, or LTAC or whatever, and then it says, oh, I see this behavior, I would prefer that one.
Yeah,
and then everybody agrees usually. But on the other hand, I mean, is it really a bug?
But let's be. Sorry.
Not everybody agrees.
Yeah, okay, but even
sometimes in LTAC, I'm just too tired to say no.
Okay, but on unification, sometimes everybody agrees, and still we don't.
But let's just have more categories and be more specific in what we mean by bug.
But
I mean, bug should be what is clearly seen as a bug by everyone.
Yeah, but the bug is also important to have bug or not bug of feature request. I think the important thing is per component. For example, we should be able to do very easily to say, okay, how many issues we have with LTAC. Okay, for example, this will be a better number, for example, for people like me that maybe like in LTAC one is not going to work well. So I think what we are really missing is a component system, because imagine you're working on the make file, so you're working in the installation, or you're working on the pre-typing or on program. But yeah, for example, we like to click a button and say, I think this is the key to say, okay, this is program, this is all the things in program. And I think we are doing very bad that, and we should think a bit the component. I think a more thought out component rework is needed. Yeah. We have still the old component tags from Bugzilla, but I think this is...
The components are coming from Bugzilla, and we had already, in Bugzilla, it was seemingly a lot of components already, but what we discover is that we need even finer grain components.
So for example, in notations, more or less, you can click the tag notations, and Hugo and me, we tend to use the tag. Okay, so you can see
there is a tag program.
Yeah, but we are not doing that properly, you know.
Well,
so
we have 18 open PR issues on
program. Not much
so Mathieu is only on. And so here, I mean, this is an example that I think the problem is that
it is not going to work.
The main problem is Mathieu's days are finite. Okay. So.
Oh well, sure. That's manpower is different.
But the issues of program are they made stale by the fact that there is equation?
No, not necessarily.
But are you going to work on them?
I don't know.
So you should not be assigned.
This I don't know means no.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. I mean, there might be
one issue
you should keep.
You should keep the ones that you intend to work on.
Yeah, but I have no time to try it.
Yeah, so this is another problem.
I don't think I opened the issues.
There is a chicken and egg problem there, which is like if you don't have a lot of time, like Mathieu, just to know whether you're actually going to try to address a an issue or not, you need to evaluate the cost. And this is extremely hard to do in the current system. So you need some time just to know by default.
Yeah, it means no, because
by default it's no.
Yeah. What about another axis, priorities? I mean, I hope that
Yeah.
you want to fix soundness bugs.
Yes.
Okay.
For sure.
But then there I
Yeah, but for the other ones, I mean,
how
how do you fix the priority? Usually, you have to evaluate the ratio between the cost of fixing the bug and the importance of the problem. So you need to evaluate the cost.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, but I don't even have a way to say there is critical and high.
Maybe we should have several triaging labels, since you are talking about labels for triaging, like priority unknown, part unknown, kind unknown, and puts everything to unknown by default with the bot, and then we triage what we can, and we gather information like this.
You can also look for things that don't have those labels. You know?
Yeah, this is another way. This is another way, sure.
It seems
But
clear.
no, actually, sorry, Pierre, it's complicated because with GitHub you can easily search for the issues that have no labels, but to look for the issues that have no part label or no priority label, it's complicated because you will need to list everything.
Yeah, I know. But I think they're working on that, and they might have to solve it at some point.
Yeah. So we have 1 minute. So I don't know what the conclusion is. Well, it seems this is a big problem. So for the networking group, for sure, we should maybe allocate more time to this.
do you want to say a word about PRs?
Well, I don't know. Maybe Pierre-Marie wants. About PRs, well, we have too many, but I know. But if you think like this is, I think
there is one easy way to close 10 PRs. I have many of them that have not moved in a few months. I can reopen them when I
But what is the problem?
It's an easy way, but
What is the problem?
what's the point?
My problem is mostly psychological in the sense that a pull request is something that should be mostly ready for being merged. Like you're actually requesting merging. You shouldn't use that as like a SIM tree where you have. I mean, I cannot really. I get lost in the sea of. I mean, issues are not a problem because there are so many that I don't care anymore. But PRs are things that should be handled.
So first, I think what you just said about issues is very wrong. We should work on that. And second, I think the opening the APRs in the way you don't like, I think this is because we are lacking a tool or a communication channel to say what we are working on currently and how we are working on it, and to make sure we synchronize with other people. So when I know that Gaëtan is touching like the same parts I'm working on some refactorings, I typically open PRs earlier than I would otherwise. So that we don't.
All right, but that should be how do you call that? Like date limite d'utilisation optimale for new requests, where like after 1 year and something, we just close them because there has been no activity or anything whatsoever. We've got a shitload of them, like proposals that are not consensual, that are not going to be any decision ever, and they're just like hanging there. And that pisses me off in some way. So
okay, so
what's wrong with clicking the close button? I mean, there is also an open button, open button.
So yeah, I think you should distinguish two kinds. So you just mentioned both, but some PRs are open; they are not controversial. It just takes time to technically convert. Okay.
Yes.
And some other kinds, I mean, there is no agreement. The convergence is not even ensuring that it would be integrated. And so because we are polite, we don't want to close them. I mean,
even in the first kind, there are two kinds. The ones that need work from the author, but are not bringing anything to be open, and the ones that need a collaborative work by getting reviews and stuff. And this is useful to have peers for that.
Yeah, but okay.
So you could have more of a policy of saying if your PR is 10, you did not work on it for 2 weeks, we close it and you can reopen it when you got.
I'm not sure I like it.
Let me take a practical example that I have in the PRs I should be handling, which is one by Emilio. I took that one because Emilio is in the room, which is a 6171, which is removal of the global proof state, right? So we all know that Emilio is working on the STM and trying to get that thing working. But the PR is just horribly stale. It has, if you look at the thing,
look at the message below. You pick a bad example because actually this PR is submitted as a more recent PR. Yes, a very complex PR. So actually this PR is written down. Yeah, it was split into a different one. So yeah, this is a bad example.
But why is it open?
so it can be just closed.
Exactly.
No,
That's
because
what
this
you
one
must
is
know.
depending on the other PR, which is depending on Astra, which actually I was expecting.
Yeah,
to
but
go to
maybe
you.
we need to do this kind of depending PRs less often.
Yeah, but this is like a very extreme case because you're talking about refactoring a whole internal API.
but
So of course, it's taking and it's taking this PR was really months ago, but there are some problems with Astra.
So what's the problem?
That's exactly my point.
So what's the problem with this PR?
Well, there is no problem with this PR, Mario.
The problem is that I am assigned to this PR, and it has been sitting there for like 1 year and a few months.
So maybe you can unassign politely and say, please ping me again when it's converted.
It's still very. So the problem then, if I do that, is that I usually look for PRs that have not been assigned to anybody when like I want to look for PRs that should be merged.
But but it should have the needs progress label, and then you shouldn't be looking at PRs with the
I agree we need
needs
to
progress.
improve it. But
And for the rest, I mean, just to try to work on your psychology. I mean,
Yeah,
right, but
no,
you're right. With needs progress.
Yeah,
and
Mike has a
assign.
point.
yeah, I see his point. I mean, I feel the same.
Yeah, Marie has a point.
It's not pull request. It's dead code. Like it needs a serious rebase. It's like it has gone stale. We know that there are projects. We know that there's a tower of dependencies over there.
Yeah.
Like it would rather be. I would be happy to see that thing.
Yes,
as
but
like,
You really picked the wrong example.
Yeah, you picked the wrong example because 90% of this PR is in another PR which is up to date.
No, but it's even worse than that.
Exactly. So
These
that's
open PRs are the only way we can get some information on Emilio's plans. I mean, so if you close them, we're going to lose the only.
I mean, you could have a public
Yeah,
branch.
right. Okay, let's do one.
Yes, but then I mean, you would need to monitor all the forks of everybody and be aware of the evolution.
So we're using the PR system to
I agree
monitor
with you,
what.
Mike. What's the point? Why are they open? To know what Emilio does?
No, how do we know what to know? I mean,
I think this was more of a joke. Don't let this.
it is. So,
There should be another.
No, when the PR was open, was the only thing is a PR that hit many problems with parts of code, like things depending on the state.
Let's forget about that one. Let's pick another one. So Hugo is not in the room, unluckily.
Yeah, but
we need to conclude,
finish,
by the way.
it was half of a joke, but seriously, one thing you
So
can
tell me, how do we know your plans?
One
Tell
thing,
me, how do you know your plans?
one thing,
Where are your plans? The same, I mean, so the same
one thing you can do with these open PRs that is harder to do just with branches is you can watch and be notified on evolutions on that specific PR.
But this is a PR that is not abandoned. I mean, it's just very hard to get.
Maybe
I'm not complaining about that. I mean, and we're diverging. Let's pick
we're
another one.
diverging.
Okay, let's pick another one by
We need to conclude. We need to conclude.
But maybe the problem is not
If Enrico wants to, you want to say something?
No, it's just that I sympathetic with what Pierre-Marie. There is confusion, there is chaos to me. And it makes everything harder because you have to browse more stuff.
I agree with
So
that.
the question, if there is a reason to keep them there, I'm definitely happy to keep them there, but I don't see it. So I will
But if there is a reason to keep them there and they create confusion, maybe just using more labels can help.
Yeah, but there's some PRs that at Pierre-Marie point are truly stale, and this maybe they should be closed. This is true. Okay. That's okay. Anyways, we need to conclude, so I don't know what the conclusion is. Maybe for bugs, I wrote down.
To conclude on PRs, the problem is that every time we talk about that, we agree that there are some PRs that should be closed. But when we try to put this in practice, then the author is generally not very happy about closing the PR.
Well, one problem is we have no process to say no to integration.
So for instance,
closing the PR is just the act of making this
But
explicit.
it's even
We do have
temporary.
No,
what's the process?
no, we
Which I know,
only
because
have we only have a process to we only have a process to not to decide yes. And so when we don't decide yes, it means no by default.
But it's stale.
But it's
Exactly.
stale. And we could say like Rust, well, a PR that has been open for more than 30 days and it's closed and come back with open it again once it's the right time.
How do you define that policy?
But it just means that we need some policy.
Okay.
Because we cannot
Did you
We
write
cannot
this idea?
force people.
Which one?
30-day
Limit.
limit.
Yeah,
Can you write it? I mean, it's not that we are going to do it.
Yeah, I put it.
I don't mean this should be this policy, but if we have a specific policy, a concrete policy, then we can say by the policy, I close the PR. Otherwise, it's just going to be rude.
Okay, I guess for PR, the conclusion is there is not a lot of conclusions on ideas, but still, I guess we'll have to keep working the way we work for now. Maybe in the next session, people can think about more concrete proposals. I think everybody is right, so this is a problem when everybody is right. But and about issues, I say like maybe it's an important subject, and maybe the only step we kind of can discuss is to try to label them better.
And we need to do collaborative work on all this. Given the numbers, nobody can do it on their own.
Yeah.
To try edge and label.
To level and more manpower needed. Okay. Okay. So well. So this is very important. So I'm sorry if 15 minutes was clearly not enough. I think it's not worth, in my opinion, it's not worth like having more session, but in the next month having another session, so people can think and come with ideas. So maybe if you agree, we can propose like a 40-minute session about this topic on the next working group.
I'll try to write Gym guidelines for before the next working group.
So next working group.
And I will submit them as a PR so that we can discuss them.
Okay. Yeah, but
PR for what?
PR on the contributing guide probably, but as a part of more advanced contributions like the ones that you need already some permissions to do.
Okay, Mathieu. Tu veux t'asseoir là?
Non, je peux mettre là-bas. Oh, c'est pareil. Est-ce qu'on a déjà mis? Non. Il n'y a que du... Il n'y a que du VGA?
Oh, tu peux pas marcher.
Je sais pas.
Bah, j'ai l'impression. Ça m'étonne.
Is there only VGA?
D'habitude, il y a toujours du HDMI.
I forgot mine. Yeah, I forgot mine and stupid.
Ah, mais c'est quoi? C'est du USB-C?
T'as un truc VGA?
C'est quoi, c'est du USB-C? Là.
Ça, c'est...
Ça, c'est qui, ça?
Non.
C'est du USB-C?
Non, je sais pas. Non, il me faut ça.
Ok, ça va aller, je pense.
Ah oui, ça va. SBC.
Celui-là, je mets où?
Là, à la place de celui du tien.
Ça passe? C'est un... Ouais, c'est USB 3, ouais. C'est pas la même chose?
Non.
Que se passe-t-il? Il n'y a pas un truc sur la télécommande?
Oui. Non, c'est pas ça. Ça doit être ça. Attention. Là, il s'est passé quelque chose, mais... Il voit l'écran, là, externe, ou pas?
Vérifier. Désolé.
Parce qu'il s'est passé quelque chose. Ah, regarde, il s'est passé encore quelque chose.
Non.
Il voit rien.
Détecté. Non.
C'est bien là, oui.
Ouais, puis ça avait marché.
C'est plutôt qu'il faut.
Ça avait marché. Alors,
le problème, c'est que c'est pas Apple. Là,
non, mais on l'avait. C'est ça qu'on avait utilisé à Orsay, non? Quand on avait fait mon séminaire il y a 2 semaines.
Je ne sais pas. Attends.
Si quelqu'un arrive à brancher le sien, c'est juste des slides Google, hein, je peux le faire. Ah, peut-être c'est mieux.
Il dit nouvelle source de présentation détectée.
Ouais, je pense que c'est bon.
Attention, suspense.
Là, j'ai un.
Ah, c'est pas moi qui l'ai appuyé là ou pas?
J'ai juste rebranché.
Ah!
Tout à l'heure. Non.
Vous voyez un deuxième écran? Ah non?
Ah, c'est bon.
Donc on a désactivé YouTube parce que c'est un truc secret.
Alors, je suis pas sûr. Peut-être que
Ah.
les gens me voient. Mais je peux peut-être faire ça. Peut-être que je peux faire les deux en même temps. Ça peut marcher. Ouais, donc je voulais parler de. I wanted to talk about the Proof Global API and what I want to use it for. So my use cases for using interactive proofs is that in program or in equations, I generate obligations corresponding to holes in the term, like you do for refine. I want to allow some of them to be opaque and some to be transparent. So typically, when you have proof obligations about well-foundedness, you might want to just make the proofs of arithmetic properties opaque because you don't want to reduce inside the system, but you will just extract your program, things like that. And also, when you have real dependencies between your obligations, you might just want to, you most of the time want to hide them behind a constant to not show the unfolded proof term in the dependencies. That's very useful. And at the end of the obligations, usually I define a program, sometimes more definitions, extra definitions on them. And that's a bit of a bonus in the sense that these obligations can be shrunk. So if they don't depend on some of the context in the original term, we don't see the dependencies in the final term. So the context can be minimized like we do for abstract already. And with equations, and actually any refinement mode you might want to have with definition as well. In that case, I also have holes in a partial term. And when you're doing dependent pattern matching, you sometimes want to refine your program progressively. So you will write a partial proof term, see what you need to fill for each part of your term, and then introduce something new with new holes in it and things like that. So you get partial refinements. And with some GUI support, we could give some type information on this hole. So I know each time I process the definition, what is the context of a hole, what is its type, and to get a kind of refinement mode a la Agda or epigram, you will need support for this thing. But so with equations, I also know instead of generating obligations with program, I can also open the proof mode with multiple sub goals. Corresponding to the holes of the term that you can either look at, so you get the context and the type of all the goals at the same time. So it's not localized to a particular point in the program. But then you can also decide that some parts of the proof you want to write in the proof mode, some parts you just want to refine as terms. And there's the same requirement as for obligations. I want that the transparency is configurable by the user if you want to define a constant or make it opaque. Even when switching to the proof mode, you might want to say that one sub-goal should stay abstract in the other sub-goals because it's some conditions, arithmetic conditions, for example. And I want the proof API to handle this. And eventually, it should be the case that obligations just become multi-goal proofs with some support for defining constants like this. Okay. So the requirements are to get multiple dependent sub-goals as input, which proof view can already handle. All the tactic engine can already handle this. But the current interface of proof global is pretty awkward because you cannot just give an eval map and saying my goals are these evals. You have to build a kind of telescope which shows the dependencies between the goals. So my idea is just to make the telescopes optional and to instead give an interface with starting with an eval map. And yeah, as I said, proof view already handles the multiple goals, so that's not too hard. The other side is when we finished proving something. When we have a proof on multiple sub-goals, I want to generate constants for each of them. So proof global already does this. It generates a lemma for you, a lemma constant for you from the proof term. But that's a bit of I think a hack right now to handle a lemma with. So when you have multiple lemmas that define multiple constants at the same time. Actually, what I have with obligations is an interface that gives me back not only these defined constants, but also an assignment of the original goals as evals to polymorphic constants. So the constants instantiated at the right universes in a specific universe context, so that I can transport other data structures depending on these terms to the new term. So I just substitute the existential by their concrete implementations in my data structures. So that's how I build the final program definitions. Or you could build multiple terms with derives the same way.
So what does Lima with do today with respect to?
So I think
the
it
definitions?
I think it gets back the bodies, and from that generates the mutual fixed points corresponding to it.
I know the recursion part is a horrendous hack.
Yeah, so that's
So
the hack I'm talking about.
basically, the term is ill-typed throughout.
Yeah.
And then at the last minute, there is a hack to, because basically you're
To
doing an
get,
induction without saying on what.
Yeah.
Which is a bit. It looks like a bad paper proof.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so difficulties is handling, of course, this closed proof and how do we generate these multiple constants. But there's another thing that's going to be hard is how to maintain the opacity or abstract status of a goal during the proof. The current interface of proof global does not deal with that correctly. So if I give multiple sub-goals, one of them I solve with abstract, for example, the effects are not properly substituted in the rest of the goals. Things like that happen. So one idea that I have, but that may be completely crazy or wrong, is to introduce a kind of evars that do stay abstract. So in that case, you would, to implement abstract, you would just say, here I'm implementing an abstract sub-goal. So I mark this with an evar abstract body here. And then it's handled at proof closing time only. So when we come back to this evar abstract subterms, we generate constants and we replace them with constants in the rest of the term. It's pretty functional in that sense. You could also implement that by inlining to a Latin or a lambda if you want. The issue is that, of course, it breaks an invariant of equals that you don't get defined. I mean, you cannot stop at a defined eval when you do a kind on an equals. Okay, but here, defined abstract evals would stay abstract to ensure that indeed the rest of the proof term cannot depend on the actual implementation below the abstraction. It also would have to change the way we do closed proof. So there's clearly some difficulties to be thought about with the STM. And then there's also the difficulty of proof global in general of handling the proof terminators and termination hooks that I would like to understand better.
So this would also make better the backtracking with abstract and so on. Because it would be just normal.
Yes. And you could even probably parallelize if you know that you only have abstract evals in your goals. You could parallelize. I mean,
I'm not sure it should be at the level of the evar body because you might want to have an axiom or something. So the abstract flag should be somewhere in the evar, but not at the level of the body, I guess. You might want to get an evar empty, assuming this is supposed to be handled as an axiom. Like admit is also a user of the we had to hack around the implementation of the STM to make admit work, and we might get back the old behavior of like defining an axiom on the fly.
That's your point. Okay.
Is it because here it requires the body, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. The point of the abstraction is that you don't care if there's a body or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or yet, or what it is. So yeah, I should. Yeah, maybe it's not about body. I don't know.
But I mean, you will have abstract evals that are instantiated at some point, right?
Also, yes.
I mean, you need them to build the final proof term.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that transparency should be somewhere else in the evar info rather than the evar body.
Oh, transparency, yes. But what about the evar abstract?
You would have like a three-valued thing, like a definitionally transparent. That would be like the standard evars. Transparent, like the definition, but transparent, opaque, QED opaque, or something.
Yeah.
Like that, I guess.
So the why I did to evar body was just because it was simpler to look at all the places where you would need to unfold evars.
Yeah, it looks kind of natural to put it there. Because you're changing the way the substitution acts.
But actually, it depends, because if you're talking about constants, I think it's a bad idea to relate the var to constants. okay, constants as of today, they are a very different thing, in particular because they can not to have a body, okay, and they can be like delegated and all this stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure. So this could be very useful, but okay, so I think here it feels to me we're mixing two problems. One is the problem how proof global, which is by the way going away because they will no more proof global anymore, will be just proof. How you are handling constants, which is actually not properly handled because of the proof global and STM, they kind of not properly integrated. And then how could you handle like intra-proof abstractions? Yeah, but actually this will be bad because in a sense, if you are going to have a constant and the document manager is going to have to take care of processing constants asynchronously. Yeah. Personally, I will better. I think this can be interesting, but I will start, for example, fixing as Mathieu mentioned in the second point and in the third. Personally, we have a big problem with the way proof terms for constants are saved. Okay, if you go to the type of this terminator, actually every client has to implement constant saving.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is very bad. So actually, I would rather, and also there are some problems. It's full of assert faults. If you try to, because like for example, like a call to the proof engine can return like several bodies, and no part of the code is able to handle that. So they just do assert faults. Okay, so this is. Personally, I will try this cleanup, which is not very. I will start, so I will consider the IVAR modification as a second step, but I will try first to improve a bit the interface used currently by equations and at this open proof level.
Like the proof level.
But there is a tension somewhere, and there are at least two completely opposite ways of solving it. So basically, you have one proof, and you want to define multiple things. More or less. So you may see
I have multiple proofs and I want to
but no, it's multiple subproofs, but it's like the more or less the same proof. So you could see it either way.
Talking about proof.
So exactly, you have two ways of seeing it, which are the same, but will change a lot the design. Either you see them as independent proofs, so then you have one proof, one definition, but of course you lose the ability of conveniently switching with dependencies, reordering, things like that, the proof engine support. So that's more the obligation, initial obligation view. Or you could say then I add support for definitions for subproofs, and then you have only one proof. And these two, so this is one approach, which is going more like making it possible to have a definition for a subproof that you mark as IVAR. And then you have only one proof, but multiple definitions for that proof. But we could imagine we go the other way. I feel like Emilio is like going a bit more the other way, maybe like simplifying the saving path. Proof saving path means one proof, one definition. So then it's kind of incompatible. It would be the other view. Then you would have a layer.
I'm not sure it's the arity of the number. I mean, the number of proofs that's problematic.
My impression is that we call it proof, but I mean, we say Mathieu is proposing an IVAR map as a context where you do refinement.
Okay? Exactly.
And then what you do with it at the end is another story.
But the question is
it's separate from constants. You don't even need to define constants.
But the question is whether it is the regular proof engine that implements these multiple definitions, or if it's something on top of it. And,
I think it should be on top.
And when I listen to Emilio, I seem to hear like the document manager would need to be aware of it.
My impression is that we shouldn't say, okay, it's written QID, but given that the IVAR map has 25 IVAR abstract thing, we do different things. So if you want to do an equation, you begin the equation, you end the equation, and the equation treats the IVAR map in a specific way.
But it would still mean that at the end of this proof, maybe with a specific marker, then you would have multiple definitions. The same
yes, so the STM must be aware of that, but I mean...
So removing, as a first step, removing this possibility seems a bit like going in the other direction.
Which possibility?
Emilio was saying we should first clean the proof saving path, which
certainly this is necessary.
But
I think we should.
But if it means removing the possibility for saving multiple things at proof closing time, then maybe it's a bit strange.
But right now you cannot do that. I mean, but you can fast track. This is different, okay? But this is like uniform.
I think we are in the same direction.
What I'm hoping with this is that actually we do maintain the abstraction everywhere during the proof, it's not related to consent. During the you won't see blah blah subproof during your proof. You will see an abstract EVAR.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so it's completely
understand.
separate from consent. The whole proof can be
Yeah,
purely
but
functional
in
with
first
respect to
proof,
this.
yeah.
It's only at the end that you might generate multiple definitions.
Then there is
I think it's a better separation.
Then there is a mismatch between EVARs and constants. So a typical problem that happens with the side effects is the number of universes that are quantified over, or when you start mixing polymorphic and monomorphic constants. So for instance, if you use rewrite inside a polymorphic proof, rewrite is going to generate a monomorphic side effect for the writing lemma. And this is a horrible mess that contributes to the fact that it cannot be really entangled.
That's a bit orthogonal. It's just this idea of generating on the fly lemmas out of the hat.
Yeah, but the problem here is that in this representation, when you see these things are as EVARs, we forget about the universe constraints and probably all the properties of constants that are really constant specific. Here, we're making the assumption that everybody is living in the same global. I mean, that might be better, but expect.
I think what Yamai is saying is that when you save the thing at the end, you need to say something about the universe is carried by the constant that comes from the EVAR. And then one correct strategy is to quantify over all the universes appearing in the group, probably.
But you can also shrink if you want.
But if you shrink, then you have to be careful to do the right thing at the places where the occurs.
Actually, I think it gets better for your use case that I would like to eliminate in a different way. For the use case of rewrite generating a lemma, the lemma will be threaded around in the EVAR map as one of these EVAR abstract whatever, and then at the end we decide what to do. At least you have all the information. It's not that you do something ahead of time
on the side
without knowing which university will be there, or at least you do it.
But I'm just saying, expect a huge number of backwards incompatibility because of that. Like tweaking side effects is a nightmare, really.
But it should handle all of them. At least it should handle abstract correctly, and probably also
this is
side
something I'm
schemes.
not sure to understand.
So you should remove side effects actually.
Does it
exactly.
undermine use of abstract
Hmm?
as a way to force verification of a term?
Your use of apps is the one of a cache. You want to do the verification of proof real time once and for all, and then have the kernel not do it again later on.
Yeah.
No, it won't make it worse. I mean, it's the same thing.
So actually, this is what I'm disappointed we didn't have these non-issue documents. So Abstract has many. There is an issue no document in that. Abstract is used by many ways. So in this issue, there are many people. But it's also broken in many cases. So I'm not sure how can we ship something that is so broken, honestly. I mean, because then of course
because it works.
it works.
It makes the world go round.
Okay, to some point. But
because we're not sure how to fix it.
Well, no, we have some ideas. We have at least
that's one idea to.
At least now, sort of the pull request that Pierre-Marie was saying, we have a good idea that works and that what doesn't. Okay.
So here in this setup, if you use abstract, you do your proof. It becomes the proof term inside abstract. At the end of the proof, you define one constant. So you call the kernel once with this.
I would even.
And then you release that.
It's not the same behavior.
When
do you type check?
My question is, when is the term type checked?
So it's orthogonal to this API. You could have something EVAR checked now by the kernel and not rechecked later, and then have a way to.
How do you enforce that in a safe way?
It isn't that proof closing time.
Yeah, it should be added somewhere.
Yeah, but then it should be sealed by the kernel at some point if you want to say.
Yeah, exactly. Because
yes,
then
that should happen.
Yeah. If you try to type check the thing by the kernel and then trust that, then we're back to the horrible side effect thing, essentially.
No. But you can do it. I even had a patch at the beginning where you could call the kernel, and the kernel would give you a sort of fingerprint on a term.
Yeah.
And then if it finds again the same term in the same
fingerprint,
context, the same fingerprint, then you would not retype check it and trust the fingerprint.
Yeah, except that it's very fragile and there are some soundness bugs regarding that because the certificate you need to give is very hard to actually capture. Like the invariance on the kernel.
In this specific case of Guillaume, it's just that the context must be the same. So you should be able to compare the context efficiently.
Yeah, but
You
you need to
need
compare
meeting,
extensions of context. You need to compare extensions because you will be called in an extension of that context. And then the problem is that you need to take into account global
But aren't you-
universe
I mean, that-
constraints.
You're saying that it's the same as today, right?
Yeah, which is broken. So let's try not to.
No, I don't understand.
So today, for instance, you can define a side effect using ML interface. You can define a side effect that is wrong, but trusted by the kernel, because the kernel only checks the fact that the current safe env is an extension of the safe environment that was used when the term was defined. The problem is that such safe environments are not taking into account the universe constraints, and it's very hard to check that efficiently. So you can actually prove false using the low-level API of the side effects. You don't check for added constraints. You can define a new side effect in an extended thing that relies on global constraints.
Yeah, okay. You should recheck the universe constraint, but this is not what bothers you.
But you don't.
Yome is a VM compute that wants to cache, not.
But what I'm saying is that trying to come up with a certificate, for terms that is stable under extension, which is what you need, is very hard.
Okay, guys. So we need to wrap up for now.
So maybe the only thing I didn't quite get, so you can say again briefly. You seem to say at the beginning that this view of Ibarra abstract leading to defining constants was not the way to go.
I mean, there is not a good relation between bars and constants.
Yes.
Okay, so, but I think this is a good first step. I mean, I think this
I think it will help. It will at least make the things orthogonal and make abstract simple.
In my opinion, as I've been working in this proof level, I think this is a very good design document for now. So I think we can, for example, for my part, I can progress on some things which are orthogonal to this, which are related to the proof 7 path and so like this.
Yeah, the terminator. So we didn't.
It's a good design document. We need, of course, to see better, to go to the drawing board. I can design a bit better, but as a first design document, it seems interesting to me to discuss, and the idea is interesting. I need to think more, but as a first design document, is good to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is my idea, and of course there are many problems with Astar. I mean, the point is actually really like there are some bugs, as you know. Now we have, so I think we can also fix these bugs and then put this later. But this is a good design document, and yes, indeed, we need to reflect how we are going to handle this. Now we have all this star proof, and in fact there are 3 layers of star proof, like in lemmas, in proof level. So yeah, we need to see what we understand by proof, and then this is. I have some questions for the hacking session. I wanted to ask Pierre-Marie, for example, about some uses of the proof engine that they start like. So there are some invariants to clarify lower level, but this is like maybe this is a. Because actually, certainly in some sense, the EVAR map at some point, yes, at some point you want a model like Gacha. So then this is. I'm convinced at some point something like this will happen to support even inside proofs to having holes. Okay, so you can have one constant. But yeah, but really my problem is we have many problems with abstract and with constants. So this is the third point. So this is maybe fixing these problems. We'll modify the API for sure, and then will be the second iteration of the documents will be done on top of that. But yeah, certainly 2 and 3 shouldn't happen without this. Without interacting with one.
Yeah, they have to be related.
So this is very related, but there are different levels in this. The thing is, for example, it's not clear at some point who's going to delegate. Imagine you have abstract, but then Guillaume wants the abstract to run in a different thread. So then, for example, we'll have this machinery in the preview to have some kind of hook into delegating proofs. So I mean, there are some kind of issues. But for now, for example, I reserved for the hacking session, but all the terminator things, this is clear what you
just write par abstract.
Well, actually, with the stronger typing, you can see why there are some of the problems. Actually, with the stronger typing, you can actually see, like, for example, some type information is not used, so this is not updated and not returned or not threaded. So at least gives you, anyways. So well, we have. Well, my point is, this is a good, very good first design. So we can start. I don't know. I could believe something like that is going to be needed.
Also, I think it will make it possible to implement refinement modes, what they do in Fiat or whatever.
Yeah.
They start a proof of true just to have an ever map, and then they populate the ever map with their goals, their refinement things.
Yeah.
They use tactics, and then they use abstract to say the thing. With this API, it's possible to do something nicer without
dealing with the side effects and upfront.
It is exactly what this API does.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So maybe it's the time for anybody else. It's time for Enrico.
Sure.
It opens the door to a style of using the code system. That I not like in the end.
I don't know. I prefer a refinement mode than a proof of true, and then a tactic that generates a constant on the fly.
But you don't like abstraction. You don't like
Transparent abstraction.
Transparent
That's no, we didn't have.
No, we have it. We have it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, what?
Transparent abstract.
Yeah.
It's an abstraction that you can see.
Yeah, so it's a constant that's unfoldable, right?
I think it's like defined, but
Yeah.
in the middle of it. So,
So yeah, we can talk during the hacking sessions about them. I'd like to really understand
Yeah,
Terminator
yeah,
and global.
Yeah, this is.
And I guess Maxime, with your separation
that's
of
my
passing and
priority.
state,
Because I tell you, as far as I understand, it's hard to play, for example, LSP properly, because you have the same problems like STM has. Like there are some parts you cannot with equations you cannot really like. It's very strange the way. Well, a separate client can implement the thing, so it's very hard for the document manager to know what the client is doing. So yeah.
I cleaned up more or less the opening proof part. He was working on the closing proof part. So hopefully one day we'll.
The opening has also, yeah, but I'm also working on this opening, but it has some issues.
Can you try again? The one to detect the source is there.
Sorry.
Okay. So I don't have many things to say. So, one thing I wanted to talk about the upper bound to the packages we have. So when the archive was let's say designed, it was there's a typo between 8.5 and 8.6, and so we were breaking everything every few years. So it was low and painful. And the package manager we have keeps all versions. So it's my point is that it's hard to test combinations. So you never know. So things may break. Okay, it's not easy to test all possibilities. And we wanted to avoid Coq users to need to become OPAM experts. So we wanted to make their life as simple as possible. Okay. So, what we decided to do at that time was to say that packages have an upper bound on Coq, so that instead of getting a compilation error, you get a message that says you cannot install this package. They seem less careful.
It's also much quicker.
Yes. And it happens that you have to bump these numbers, these boundaries, if the software still works, or make another release. Okay, and this, I think it was reasonable at that point in time. Today things are better, are different. We release more often, and we don't break much at the Gallina level. Okay, we break everything at the MEL level, but at the Gallina level we don't break many things. And the other two things are still true. So PAM keeps all the versions, so there's no good way to test everything that is in the archive, and our user happily not experts. So my problem with the approach that was designed back then is that today you release Coq and packages, even if they work, they're not available to you because you need to bump these boundaries.
But
how difficult is it to dump? Like, how much
Oh,
time
it's
does it take?
It's easy,
it's very easy.
but people have to do it.
This is one patch that I merged the other day. This is how it takes, but you have to do it.
So it can even be automated, right?
Yeah, possibly.
You could
This is
you could consider
The conclusion.
you could consider having the bot open 1,000 PRs. I don't know how many packages there are, but for each.
I strongly disagree with this idea.
No, but I'm not
Okay,
saying
let me
I'm
finish
not
then,
suggesting it.
Let me just finish
said
with
you
my
could.
slide, and then we
get cut off. But,
no.
Yeah.
Then I want to hear from you, because this is the point of this short talk. Is to, I'm schizophrenic, so I change my mind every day, so I don't know really what to do. And the other thing could be that today what I'm not sure about is that we could do something different. Let's say we don't put the upper bound anymore, because we typically don't break things, so it's not very needed. We keep it for the plugins, so for the packages with the mail code, because these we break, we know, so there's no point in not having the boundary. And
usually it's not even a boundary; it's an equality in that case, or
yeah, exactly. And then when a packet happens to break, we put the boundary. This is a possibility.
Why not even use compat mods?
And then it's yet another axe that I wouldn't.
convinced, and Open
You're not
supports this by default. So it will
So
make sense.
what I'm asking is, should we be optimistic and say
yeah.
that we don't break many things, and eventually, if we break things, we put the boundary so that only one user gets the scary error message, the first one, hopefully. And but we have packages ready from day one, and this is, I mean, you organize the next release, so your opinion is more important to me than the others.
So I can say, for example, I think I commented.
Sorry, I wanted to say two things. The first thing is that this question is you are not the first one to wonder about this kind of things in the open ecosystem. I have seen the people from James Street Core wondering about the exact same problems that they had, because they have many libraries depending on or packages in general depending on core, and so they wondered about this.
In Haskell as well. They have long threads.
Even in Debian, we can go back very.
But I think this is closer. I mean, this is
was there any
well.
conclusion?
So I mean, I don't remember, but this should be checked. And the other thing is that Guillaume Claret has put up an infrastructure back in the time that is still working, and that could be used to implement your proposal, which checks that every package is compatible with every version that it declares to be compatible with. And so you have a matrix, and you can see red things.
But isn't it strongly exponential? Like, because you have dependency chains. How does it work?
There are not so many.
Not so many between
depending.
No, but even two, you die, right? I mean,
Yeah, but
you support 4 versions. You have a chain of 2.
Okay, this is exponential, but you don't have many deep dependency chains, and so this would end up most of the package in one phase, and then you have another phase for the next.
Well, so my point of view is a bit different. So I have this discussion, I think, in the thanks Enrico for the summary. I'm coming from a world like Debian where there is no upper bound by default, because people have like a reasonable compatibility policy. So I think what we need to, for me, the first question is, has Coq these days a reasonable compatibility policy? And there are many users here, so I don't know what you think of the Coq code. If you think like Coq is better in backwards compatibility, it is not.
For sure, better than 8.5 to 8.6.
Okay, well, yours.
It depends what you're talking
because
about.
Because
for
the
plugins,
because
no, but it's specific to plugins. And Enrico said
no,
plugins would
plugins is
their bounds.
different. Plugins should be in the tree like the kernels in the Linux driver. This is clear.
Yeah.
But for example, the problem is, for example, I see myself releasing Coq every 3 months. I think like this is the trend in the software world, and actually is you want to do very small improvements, and I say Coq releasing every 3 months, so these upper bounds are going to be a pain. But actually, in order to release the upper bounds, you should say, okay, like as Enrico said, compatibility should be good. So for me, the question is compatibility good enough as to do this? For example, we can say like Matcom 1.7 will keep working in 3 Coq versions.
Well, of course, we have to define what working is. Since we ran into a bit of an issue with display, but
yeah, okay, that's indeed a very good observation. Like displays are complicated.
no, they're not tested. They're not tested. That's the
Yeah, they're
problem.
not testing them properly. We're testing just compilation. Well, so I don't know, but yeah, the upper bounds. In fact, people is against them. I tend to side with the people which is against the upper bounds, in the sense like if you're going to have upper bounds, then you should like be controlled. Like for example, if Coq is gonna really break, needs upper bounds should be Coq 9. Okay, like libraries do. So in fact, in the archive, you will have Coq 8. For example, in Present 11, you will have Coq 8 and Coq 9. I really like this version. Like actually, when you really put an upper bound, then in this what you do is you put NES major version. Okay, so all the packages will come like a NES. And in fact, the way they handle in Debian is a bit better because actually they have a version API dependency.
Can we hear that a bit?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
What would you think? Would this have an impact on the release or not, or you don't care?
I don't think it will have an impact. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, do we really want to have packages from day one? If it's the case, then maybe the process of updating the upper bound can be automated. I mean, if we decide to remove these upper bounds, maybe we should have a way to test whether those packages without an upper bounds are compatible with the new version.
This could be the role of the beta.
Well, we could have, it wouldn't take long to have an OPAM server that actually builds all OPAM in master. But for this, you need to drop the upper bounds. Okay, so that's a kind of, again, chicken and egg thing.
Well, no, it's
No,
You can introduce that. Yeah.
You drop the upper bound and then you test during the beta.
You can test every day, I mean.
Yeah, every day, but
why not continuously? Yeah.
Would it be difficult to remove the upper bound if the upper bound is 8.9? Do a more specific removal of upper bound. Only when the upper bound is the closed one. It should be triggered.
Yeah, it should be.
Let's say it's script.
No, but I think the problem is, I mean, okay, you just want, we often confuse testing and testing if it builds, which is not the same. And in fact, the whole conclusion in the Haskell world, which took months, was yeah, but maybe it compares, but it doesn't do what we want anymore. So you have to be careful.
Yeah.
So for Coq, it's probably where I'm
slightly better position.
Yeah, because we have stronger types. But still, I mean, you have it depends what kind of libraries you're developing with Coq. But I could easily imagine that something builds but doesn't have.
Of course,
but
this is orthogonal, I think.
One of the advantages.
The relation is that in order to have this automatic lifting the upper bound and testing, we need to have reasonably good tests.
This is because we need to strengthen the Matcom test suite in the way Iris was done.
Yeah, but
to test for output. Okay, but this is
Matcom wouldn't be the only problem needing more testing.
Yes, sure, we need to strengthen the test suites for displays, of course.
But this is a lot of work.
Yeah, this is orthogonal. This also matters whether we put the upper bounds or not.
Not completely orthogonal. We should promote tests more. It can be a bit weird to promote tests in the Coq world.
Yeah, I don't think it is completely orthogonal because I suspect this manual approach that we have today with the explicit bound and it takes a bit of time after the release to bump. Why is it? Well, sometimes it's just because people are busy, but also because they do manual testing, some of them. So they first manually test and then they run the...
Machine strengthening the notation test suite is orthogonal because no matter what we do with the upper bounds, it has to be done. Which the discussion is about upper bounds.
Well, I mean,
maybe it should be done before.
There was a point where we didn't test for runtime.
Yes, also.
Of course.
Now we do, so things improve.
Yeah, that's a good point. Many user developments don't track performance. So
yeah. So I don't know. I have to say, yeah, Opan was a bit disappointing this time when they released because no package was installable. So at least even if we don't raise the upper bounds, we should manage better in the release to raise them on the beta or something. So
Anyway, so I take it as it's not very important. We probably want some sort of automation either to relax
Test it once one, or test it
the
once.
upper bound just for testing and eventually to bump it once. So the point is, okay, we do nothing, but we eventually write some scripts to do these things, to do the testing and eventually propose a forecast for the upper bounds. The other thing,
maybe we should ask developers, developers of libraries and open packages, what they do when bumping. Do they just bump like without looking, and it takes some time for something useless?
well, when they bump, I test at least.
Or do they actually do some manual testing and stuff that maybe we should?
My guess is that they bump only when they discover that they want to use the package with.
But if they do it blindly, then it goes in the. It's a more of an argument for removing the bound because it's completely useless.
So maybe you should ask on Coq what they do.
Yeah.
But don't we get the same as Haskell?
Vincent, do you like upper bounds? You are a Nix, for example. What you do Nix?
He doesn't like bounds.
We pin.
Oh, so there are no bounds.
There are no bounds. It's pin.
Two ways to understand what an upper bound is. One meaning is I know this package is not compatible with that version of Coq, and the other one is I don't know yet, and I'm cautious, and I pretend I advise not to use this package with that version of Coq. And my understanding is that the current strategy is to always adopt the second point of view. But if we want to do more automatic testing, maybe we should distinguish the two between we don't know yet, and we have tested that it doesn't work. We know it doesn't work, so we label it as such, and it's not needed to test any longer or to try again. So can we track these two different things in an open description?
Yeah, you could say different from.
Yeah, you could use different.
Different what? Oh, the different sign.
Yeah, I mean, so you want to be strictly smaller than an 8/10, but also different to 8/10. Just mark that you tested.
But then, depending on temperature and pressure, it may change the solution.
Yeah, I don't think formally the language doesn't really let you do that.
I think this is an issue for upstream OCaml because really they have exactly the same questions in the OCaml ecosystem.
In every package system.
Yeah, but in the open world, they have been thinking more about this kind of version bounds.
It's very good to look at what they think.
Yeah, but I mean, this is.
Debian, I can point you like.
Yeah, no, but I know in Debian too, but this stems from the work of the same people in Debian and OCaml. I mean,
I mean, for example, I have to say. I consider the experience of Opan as very small compared to the experience Debian people has, both in number of packages and complexity. And of course, Debian have debate today. You can find threads starting in 99.
The people that did the preliminary research work that led to the solvers in Opan came from the Debian world, so they knew about that.
Yeah, no, okay. But we need to wrap up. Yeah, we can talk online about.
We'll talk about distribution.
It's not like that. We can.
We should catch
one extra slide, and this is maybe more interesting to Vincent. So the point is the transition to Opan 2. So we tried to be less abrupt than what they did. They released it 6 months ago and said, "Nah, from today you should use Opan 2." So in Coq, what we did is that we migrated so far the 2 development suites to Opan 2, but not the one where the main software is. And so today you can still stay with your old OPAM and Coq installs and things like that. So
because we have Coq packages.
yes, we made our own copy of Coq packages in our archive for the old version of OPAM. Anyway.
Okay.
So I think at some point we should switch the archive to the main archive, the released archive to OPAM 2. What about doing it along with the beta of 8.10?
And freezing the old.
Yeah, and then at that point in time, we freeze the old archive. We leave it in version 1.2 as it is today, so people can continue to use it. They won't get 8.10 or any package that works with 8.10.
Be very careful with that, because it could mean some people looking for the repo, the current one, will find this instead, and they have to realize that it's a frozen copy and so on.
OPAM plus maybe some Apache, I have to check, but OPAM lets you have the same URL, the old and the new repository.
Okay, so we need to wrap up.
So if you access to it with the new OPAM, you get the new packages. Otherwise, you get the frozen world.
This is more scary.
And sorry, guys, we need to.
You don't break what works, but you don't get anything new.
Yeah.
It seems like a good transition.
Yeah.
We need to discuss all this carefully.
Yes. So maybe we ran out of time, but I'd like to think about it and then.
What is the conclusion about the upper bound then?
My conclusion is that we need a bit of automation to do the testing, but we don't change our policy.
So we keep upper bound?
For now, and then if you have enough automation built in, you can.
I thought it was the other way around. It was if we get the scripting and the testing. But I heard. I'm not saying my opinion now. I'm saying what I thought I had heard. I thought we need a bit of infrastructure to test, and then we can remove it.
Yeah,
yes.
That's it. I think that's what you are saying.
Yes, I agree with this.
I think we all agree with this.
Okay.
Right?
So we have automation.
Given that we don't have it, we keep it as it is.
I think we agree, but it's not what Emilio.
We have automation.
And raise the issue upstream.
Then we relax. Yeah, it's like the contraposition. We relax upper bounds.
And try to see with upstream if we can distinguish the two scenarios for upper bounds, strict and.
This was an interesting remark.
Strict versus.
But known to not work versus unknown.
Okay, so now we can go. I'll try to cut it short. As we're a bit late, I'll try to cut my part short. This is very easy. This I open because in fact Coq development in communication. So this kind of bit you see about this recent post to the Coq Club mailing list that are actually very far from being accurate or have any relationship to reality. Like,
can you make me explicit about that?
I can say, for example, like, the Coq developers have chosen not to support software. People doing software verification that, as you will know, we have never said anything remotely as that. But anyways, I have a feeling like I went to see the Coq pages, and I have my friend at Thomasin knows Emily, who is a web designer. So actually we went in Brooklyn, but she came to visit. So thank you, Emily, because she helped with a few things in the website, like to understand. And actually she told me your communication and web page and all this stuff is terrible, which we know. But in this case, I think like one big problem we have, I would like to constrict this discussion to one big problem we have is actually it's not clear at all from the information that we have. It's not clear who is the Coq development team,
I said that
which is the thing, of course. But, who is the communication responsible that doesn't have to be, for example, the team leader. We should also add if we put ourselves in the website, like who is, for example, it's not clear who is talking in name of the team. So I think we should fix that. And of course, the website has many other problems on the GitHub pages. In fact, I even got convinced like maybe it would be good if sometime like the Americans want to give money, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to take some expert in France. There are many, like some web designer actually, and pay a bit of money to get a kind of redoing of all the pages of this stuff.
Okay, so maybe you were not aware, but we have made plans for that. So the web designer part is not so easy to get because we have constraints as a public institution and so on. But I would personally very much like it to be done. The team members part, I think I identified the problems 3 or 4 years ago.
Sure.
And one of the difficulties I had is that it took a year and a half, I think, to get a list of people with names.
And
there is still no process to get it up to date.
Yeah, it was never updated, this list, and I kind of imposed an update.
This list we already need it today for our concrete processes because it's more or less what we have in the core team or whatever.
The core team on GitHub.
So we already have this problem. So my point is that
I think that's the list.
The lack of such a page.
For instance, I decided to add myself and Gaetan to the core team after sometimes that no decision was taken and that
I said go ahead.
And then
but you asked me.
The question was asked again for Vincent.
Yes.
So when what
completely arbitrary. So the lack of this page on the website is a strong problem because we need to. I mean, especially for researchers in the team. I feel a bit strange in this place. I mean, visibility is critical, but it's more of a consequence of the lack of an official process to decide.
And actually I'm not sure about communication because it's clear like not every person in the team has the same communication abilities. For example, for like releases or for keeping track of user asking when is the freeze or many other things.
But I think we can agree that we are more or less all not very good at communicating.
Well, it depends. It depends. I think
some are worse than others.
Yeah, well, I won't want to get into that discussion, but certainly I think maybe we should think of the conferences they have now is the publicity chair, what they have now. So maybe there should be some kind of this role, more official too. But of course, if we don't even have a member of the teams, but marketing, this is also an issue about Coq marketing.
So
we don't have a marketing here.
What would be the role of
the communication team, but actually management announcements about Coq.
Sorry?
Doing the announcements about Coq and being the first contact point for like general inquiries. And of course, then for ones more complicated, they go forward to Matteo for the proper.
So I think today it's still implicitly it's part of Matthew's role.
It's part of Matteo, part of you with the consortium. You can have different, but in this as the team is not even described, it's hard to see who is responsible for what. So well, I don't know what the plan is.
It's kind of a community manager.
So when even I visited some industrial users a few years ago, one of the questions they had was who are the team members and what is their role? And we had to take
I remember
we had to write on the board and to explain, this guy does this,
because
this guy
it's not
does that,
definite. I mean,
and it's a bit strange to.
I think I don't know. Based on this small experiment, I did in a change of a bottle of wine of having like a person which is the size of the team read all the things. I think it clearly needs improvement. So, for example, I don't see myself doing that. So the only thing I can say is we could try to hire somebody. I can say, by the way, like for example, my friend cannot do, but she knows somebody who could do this with American money. So if you want to use American money, an option is to hire a designer in Boston or somewhere. Okay, I have some contacts. Of course, many people can have contacts.
Who would hire?
If, for example, you get money from the Americans and then you cannot transfer, you could put this money in somebody in Boston.
Who would hire?
This is freelance people. Yeah, this is freelancers. I think. I don't know, but I mean,
there are many possibilities.
There are many possibilities. Of course, in France, we also know people about this is or could be a concours or whatever. I think the only choice we have really for the website is so much work to do. Is the only choice is to have a professional at least to do a
sure.
report. Yeah.
But okay, all this is in line with.
So well, that was it. That was it. So at least we should put the team. Maybe with the work we've done now. But,
so Hugo made the remark when I mentioned the team members page specifically a few years ago. He made the remark that it would be nice to also have an overview of the past
contributors,
past members, because past contributors
is
will be a lot.
I forgot,
and I think he's right. It would be nice to have a.
Yeah, this is I forgot. Past members is very.
But all this, is
But Jane, did you go to the website and really you have no idea who to contact? You will go to the contributing page, so you
So maybe we should mention that Vincent has started to work on the website infrastructure, and we were it's not completely orthogonal. So we wanted to stabilize the infrastructure before launching a completely redesign of the website, because we want to so today we use YAML-PP.
Yeah,
We'd like to use something more standard, and then basically have a professional. But it will be easier to get a professional if
Use
our
the
infrastructure
set.
is more to set is standard exactly.
Okay, so should we, for example, open an issue about updating the contact information on the web page even before we can get somebody better to look at those on deeper issues? Okay. Yes. So what about the community manager, Theo? Would you like to add something which is important?
I kind of took that role already, and I mean, I would do even more if I wasn't wrapping up my PhD. So, I mean, as soon as I finish my PhD, and
but do you have
assuming that there is funding for me to continue, then I could take that role more actively.
So do you have access to all the tools you need, like the Facebook page, the Twitter account? And things like that?
Is there a Facebook page?
There's no
a
Facebook
Twitter
page.
account?
There is one.
Sure.
It was opened by students of Argentina 5 years ago, and this page was transferred to me at some point.
Okay,
I
so
had
then-
a hard time keeping it alive.
Yeah, but this is a consequence of what Emilio was saying. Since we have no official role, we don't know exactly where to transfer
That's a very good remark. I wouldn't be so clear about keeping a Facebook page. Twitter account for sure. Facebook.
But okay, this is also good. But my point is, if someone is designated as the community manager, and if there is a Facebook page, that person should have access to it.
And I will document that it exists.
Yes, exactly. Know that you're aware that it exists.
Yeah,
we have a lot to improve.
And and I think it's perfect to link with Theo topic, which should allow us to update it.
I wanted to comment on this. I've been doing quite a lot of institutional communication. Most of it is towards the top management of an area, but I did discuss a little with the universities when Maxime was there, but we also had this meeting 3 years ago in Boston with Matthew. And so this is something where I've always been a little, and I'm not satisfied with my own work. But the last discussion I had with the top management of area, I came with a message that was maybe a bit too ambitious, which is, it might be that in a few years from now, Coq will be an important part of the competitivity of companies in France or in our circle. And when I said that, they told me, well, if that's true, then what you are doing is clearly not enough. You know, you don't go if you are talking about changing the competitivity of people, you don't go and ask for thousands of tens of thousands of money at a time. You go, you hit the board of directors of the big companies, and you ask for millions. And if you want to do this kind of job, then you're probably not the right person to do that. So the kind of their reaction, their reaction is a bit off the ground. They don't know exactly what we are doing, but the first thing they say, we need to know whether what you're telling is even possible. If it's possible, we don't need it to be perfectly true. We need it to be possible. If it's possible, it's the job of INRIA to take the risk of trying to see if it's going to if the fire is going to take, something like that. So that was their reaction. And in that case, they say, if you want to have a business developer, the kind of business developer you want to have is somebody who can build a pitch to go to big companies and ask for big investment from these companies. And so I don't know if you wanted to have this kind of discussion, but it's related, I believe.
I think that the relation is maybe there will be no single point of contact for communication in general, but we should have more specific and precise roles. And institutional communication given by it, for example, community management is a bit different.
Yeah,
what you hear by that is a bit different.
It's clearly not the same person who must do the community management and the business development, but they must
One thing
communicate.
they were saying, and I can't do their job in their place, but one thing they were saying is, if for some kind of communications, you, the scientists, you're not the right people.
That's clear.
And so this is somehow what Emilio said when looking only at the website.
Yeah.
But you know, it's maybe that if we want to take the risk, we can go to see the top management of Enoya and say, yes, maybe we have to do this market analysis once again and say, is it true that we're coming close to industry impact? If that's the case, then maybe we can muster much more investments from Enoya than what we are asking now.
Yeah. But I'd like to say the only thing is that I think, like, facing to the exterior, we should have a single person that should dispatch. I think it's very confusing right now. Many parts. This is related to other things. It's very confusing for people to have. So towards outside, it's better to not to require people to classify and an academic user and industrial users like that. You should have like a person for communication, which should be a bit of professional in communication that maybe we none of us are.
But we have channels like this. I mean, we direct people to Coq Club. That's the channel.
I'm not sure Coq Club is like.
But what kind of interactions do you expect?
No, I think
one-to-one.
What Emilio means probably is like the press wants
No, but yeah,
information about Coq.
There is no, for example, contact page here. Okay. Just an example.
People don't want to contact publicly the Coq development team.
Yeah, it's what I mean.
No,
How do you contact privately the Coq development
I have a
team?
problem here because I have the impression that, at least on the side of the top management of Enoya, that this is accustomed to discussing with me. And that may not be, I may not be the right person. We may want to discuss that again.
Well, certainly a big problem is the entry point for Coq is the web page and the GitHub page.
But
you want to clarify the rules.
When Emilio said exterior, he meant exterior to INRIA.
Yeah,
So I don't think it changes anything.
Yeah, I think inside INRIA they know how to talk. Yeah,
And I believe they never looked at this page.
yeah. This page, many people see this page, many people see the GitHub pages, and both of them they're in need of really serious work. It's very, I think it's very naive to think like you're going to attract industrial users with this web page. We doesn't even have a contact entry.
I agree.
Okay, so, but in my opinion, I think like one thing I was discussing with Emily is that it's better to have, you need to make things simpler than they are. Look at this small test full of things, and I will have one person handle all the dispatch. Of course, then for example, somebody, it's industrial intel, okay, to Maxine, to you, if it's more institutional, okay, but the person in communication could be the community manager, will be one role of and to dispatch the thing. But it's important there is like more like a single person. A person like, for example, if Adam is wondering whether Coq will stop supporting
he knows what
instead of going, but I understand it's very hard for them to go and read this pull request who had 300 comments about this. So understand. So it will be good to say, I have this question, I know what I do a framework in the mailing list. Instead, I can just ask this person and I will get like a quick answer.
Okay. In this specific case, I'm not sure if it prevent the message on Coq, but I agree with the idea.
No, but
there is also another role that, so for example, some people like Pierre-Marie, sometimes they're preparing talks, Coq-related talks, and they have some material that could be seen as controversial, or at least the way it's phrased and things like that. And they typically are looking for a developer, like a more senior person or whatever, and they ask, is it okay if I say this or that? And then you say, no, no way, you cannot say that. And then they say it anyway, but but at least I know Pierre-Marie sometimes has asked me such a contact. It's really also to organize a coherent communication. Yeah, I think it's the same idea.
Well, that's true. Like in Coq PL, like saying LTAC, saying these things about LTAC, like some people understand them like not in the right way.
The initial version was worse.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. The zombie apocalypse, like nuclear warfare. I can very well.
But my point is that sometimes it's because we don't want to be too controversial, but also sometimes just because we want to be accurate. Sure, it reflects the position.
No, but that's for example what happened today. But that's a point like people who is considered to be the member. in the development team, do we have a responsibility?
Yes, exactly.
And the way we talk, this is for better or worse. We have a responsibility. For example, Pierre makes this commentary, which was very informal, and you see it was understood as an official position. So I'm sorry to say, Pierre-Marie, even if I agree with what you write down, but in a sense, we have this responsibility. People is seeing you as an official member of the Coq development team. So if you see like Coq is a disaster, they're gonna say what is going on here. Yeah. This is a communication thing. I wasn't thinking of that, but indeed this is a problem.
So my point
With
is,
Americans
we need to
especially.
think about the input, like a contact point and so on, but also the output. How do we organize the? I mean, not to get censorship, but when we want our communication to be quick,
Maybe no, because for
someone
example,
who can advise.
I know when Mathieu visited Penn, I remember many years ago, Mathieu visited Penn to talk about, I think, was his Tech classes. And it was taken as official gospel from the development team by everybody there. You know what I mean? And maybe Mathieu was talking about a personal project, but how the people at UPenn were saying that was as official gospel of the development team.
But now they know your aim.
Well, I don't know what this has to do. I'm not sure how it is related, but yeah, this is a problem. This is what Marcin was saying. This is also a bit of responsibility but maybe it's because the communication strategy is not clear.
Yeah, maybe also we don't think about the image we give to people. I mean, it's not something conscious.
And also, we should also,
as researchers, we don't think of this.
Okay, one thing I would like to mention is we also need channels where we can be very informal, but we should distinguish clearly which ones are which.
You can say these developers, whatever they say is not related to.
I need to hear Pierre-Marie's complaints about the code, and I need to have a way to have access to that information. But probably we don't want to submit this to large.
You can put team members. You can put team members that speak responsibly. Team members that speak responsibly.
You can probably have like a banner saying this is my opinion, blah blah blah.
Does not reflect.
Team members that every time they speak.
This should not be endorsed by the. Anyway, clarification of roles.
Anyways, I'm sorry for the prolongation. Are we drifting in time or?
Yes.
I think are okay because we are 20 minutes late, and Theo is about this course, which is very related. So I think we are good. Okay, we are 20 minutes late.
We started 15 minutes late.
So I'm kind of tired, so I have a proposal. Is it okay if we go to lunch now and come back 20 minutes earlier? So we do a break of just 1 hour and 40 minutes. I think it's already
for me. It's good
enough.
It's okay. Fine with that.
Well, if you want, why not?
Because I think I will speak better with a full belly.
Okay. You're fine about
I know, but
this afternoon. Universe polymorphism for 1 hour, and then we can talk tomorrow again.
I didn't really prepare the thing. I think we should discuss about that. So, okay.
I wanted to understand.
No, I just wanted to be sure.
And if it's not,
like you should.
So I don't even know if it makes sense to be live. Yes, because Gaetan
it does make sense.
are not there, but I don't expect everybody to be interested.
Yeah. You're not coming tomorrow to Paris? Pierre-Marie?
No.
Yes.
You're not coming tomorrow?
Yes or no?
Oh, no. Paris? Paris, no, not Paris. Work group. Being present, I mean,
yeah.
No, it will be here. So I will get the work group here.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, no, answer, for example, like maybe, I think like regarding this discussion about like the template polymorphisms, in this, I think of course there is a part which is general interest. So this was my idea. I thought, okay, maybe we can